By now, everyone and their mum has been playing Battlefield 6 around here, so I'll cut to the chase. Battlefield 6 is great in many ways, less so in others. Super original take, I know. But despite this echoed opinion, I will use this excuse to express my adoration for this franchise, because I certainly wasn't going to do it after the 2042 fiasco. Before I share just how much of a good time I had with Battlefield 6's beta, let me explain my stance when it comes to this franchise, so y'all can immediately discount any and all opinions I have. Skip to the time code if you want to go straight to my Battlefield 6 thoughts. Sound good? Let's go. Battlefield Hardline. Had a lot of fun with it, at times, Blood Money being a particularly fun mode. But after many hours put into it, I felt more underwhelmed than fulfilled. It was fine as a spin-off, but its biggest achievement to me was making me want to go back to Battlefield 4 more than anything. Speaking of Battlefield 4, let's gush over it some more, why don't we? Yeah, no hot take with this one. Countless hours, endless memories. My only regret is that I didn't get premium until long after the game's heyday, so I spent little time in the new maps, which seemed so damn cool. However, what's inexcusable, and what people tend to forget, was that the game was still quite buggy, especially the party system. Other than that, the game is just a masterclass of fun and strategy. I remember so many times being a squad beacon gremlin, turning the tide of matches simply by sneaking behind enemy lines to place the beacon down, and allowing my squad to spawn and cause so much havoc at the back, allowing the rest of the team to push forward and get out of the rut. This isn't a review or a nostalgic retrospective, so I'll just leave it here. You may think it's my favourite Battlefield because of what I said here, but you'd be thoroughly incorrect, as I still hold BF3 above it, and even that's not my favourite. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Battlefield 3, or as I like to call it, the last Battlefield where the game mode Rush was great. This game was revolutionary. The reason I can't give BF4 all the credit is because it's just a refinement of the mechanics, visuals, modes, and map design that were all introduced here in Battlefield 3. The maps are iconic, probably my favourite in the franchise, incredibly memorable. I like them even more than the maps in my favourite Battlefield. I wish they toned in those damn lens flares and give me back a soundtrack that I can't create with my mouth, please. Before I move on to my hottest take yet, I want to talk about a little game called Battlefield 1943. This was a digital-only game back on the PS3, Xbox 360 days. I remember stumbling onto the store randomly and downloaded a trial of the game. Regardless of wacky default controls, no doubt a leftover of Battlefield Bad Company 1's control scheme, a time where every game was afraid to be like COD to the point where controls had to be completely different, 1943 was a simple yet amazing experience. It was my first World War Battlefield, and the first time I got to experience flying planes, satisfying my ever-growing fascination with aviation and games. It also introduced me to the map that would be prevalent in at least half of the games of this franchise, Wake Island. Battlefield 1, many people's favourite. I think a lot of this game's impact came from the fact that it was a breath of fresh air in a time where shooters were oversaturated with a futuristic/modern setting. But aside from that, it had so many of its own merits. Grand operations, a fantastic mode that brought together a lot of the strengths of the franchise. It looks incredible to this day. You could climb above eye level instead of vaulting, being relegated to fences that are knee height. And of course, the game changers like the behemoths and zeppelins added so much flair and personality. However, despite all of that, and the many hours I put in, I didn't click with this one. And I think I finally know the reason why. There wasn't a traditional spawn beacon. Kidding. I'm not actually sure why I didn't click with this one. I think it's because Battlefield has always had a balance between bombastic chaos and controlled strategic warfare, where the actions of a soldier and squad could make a massive difference if they played well. I think BF1 leaned a little too much into the chaos and spectacle that I lost some of the balance, at least for my playstyle. So the honeymoon phase didn't last as long for me on this one, as compared to the other Battlefields. Battlefield Bad Company 1, my first ever Battlefield. I have to rely on memory for this one, but talk about personality and a distinct style, probably the most stylish of any game of this franchise. I can't disassociate the grenade with the smiley face pin for Bad Company. Instantly recognizable. And this main menu music tells you all you need to know. I wish I had more time to play the multiplayer back then, because I remember having a blast on that golf course map, being chased by the enemy as I make my escape on a caddy. Battlefield 5. Oh lord. How do I talk about this one? I don't know what the consensus is anymore, or if the majority have given this another chance, but I really like this game. And that opinion has been reinforced because I've come back to this game after the BF6 beta, and it made me appreciate it even more. A lot of the improvements in BF6 started here in 5, before they were stripped away in 2042. Oh, and just to be clear, I didn't get this game on day 1. I got it after the last update, when the game was fixed and had all of its content updates. So the fact that I didn't have that bad first impression was a huge factor as to why I didn't hate this game as much as others did. They are justified in disliking it though, because DICE really screwed people over when this first launched. But I'm telling you from my experience that this game is great, with so many clever mechanics, some of which I wish were returning in Battlefield 6, like the fortification system. This is such a brilliant mechanic, and it gives the player even more agency in battle, especially if they're having a hard time racking up the kills. Oh, and also having a squad point system that builds up throughout the match, allowing the squad leader to purchase airstrikes, tanks, and even a V1 rocket. I mean, come on, this kind of stuff is going to be sorely missed. It gave a lot more incentive for team play. Mechanics like these are not appreciated enough. I could go on and on about how Battlefield 5 is overlooked in a separate video, but I will say that if there was a Battlefield with Battlefield 1's maps and Battlefield 5's gameplay and added mechanics, we're looking at maybe the best Battlefield in the franchise. 2042. I almost forgot to talk about it. I suppose I should briefly touch on it. 2042 was a mess, we all know at this point. I did jump in after all the fixes and had somewhat of a good time with it, but even then, it's a stripped back and soulless Battlefield that's more of an impersonator than a real satisfying experience. However, it does go to show how great the Battlefield Foundation is that I could have fun at its most basic level. Bad Company 2. You knew it was coming. The crowning jewel in today's weird video that was supposed to be about Battlefield 6, but turned into a puff piece about most of the franchise. Bad Company 2 was the game that made me realize first-person shooters could be so much more than what they often were. Massive battles, nearly complete destruction, mind-blowing sound design that is likely responsible for damaging my eardrums, by the way, making rush mode one of my favorite modes ever, and on top of all of that, keeping that charm from the first Bad Company, once again creating a distinct identity. Forget Battlefield 6, where the fuck is Bad Company 3, huh? Kidding. Man, this game was something else. My biggest regret is that I never got to experience its DLC, Battlefield Bad Company 2 Vietnam. Such a shame. Alright, let's finally talk about Battlefield 6's beta. To be straightforward, this beta revived my interest in the franchise. I found it very nostalgic, hilarious, and fun. The new dragging mechanic is one of the best things ever added to an FPS. It's so addicting. The issues have already been voiced to death in other videos, like the scale of the maps, the super glints from snipers, the lack of verticality in certain urban maps compared to previous Battlefields, and a personal issue for me, open weapons on all classes. It's just something I can't get behind. I'll likely be spending most of my time in the closed weapon playlist probably. I prefer when classes make you work with the weapons you have, rather than giving you every weapon in the book for every class. It's the same philosophy behind the best RPGs. Part of what makes choices meaningful is accepting the drawbacks as well as the pros of those choices. For example, you want to be a medic who can revive half the entire team in a space of minutes and change the tide of battle? No problem, but the drawback is you're restricted to SMGs and LMGs. You want to be a recon who can sit comfortably in a match, spotting for teammates and getting those sweet sniper kills? Perfect. The drawback is you're stuck with a sniper and can do very little in a close quarters fight. I believe these drawbacks to be essential in Battlefield's identity. The class system was missing for 2042 at launch, in favour of specialists, and we saw how terribly that went. It feels wrong that I can have the best assault rifle while playing medic and revive the entire team while racking up the kills like an assault at the same time. We all have roles in the Battlefield. We need to adapt our playstyles to fit those roles the way they're meant to be played. That's what's always kept Battlefield's gameplay fresh. I don't want the only difference between classes to be a couple of gadgets and passives. It dilutes the experience and becomes like every other shooter. But I'm certain I'm in the minority in that one. Battlefield games, regardless of the era, were trendsetters. It never needed to be a trend chaser. 2042 was the worst case scenario of Battlefield becoming a trend chasing product. Battlefield 6 has pulled back from that in many ways, but to me, it needs to pull back even more and be its own thing. Even if its own thing means not innovating too much on what was adored before. If Battlefield 6 wants to be a refinement of what Battlefield 4 did so well, with a few unique additions, then I'll happily take that over mimicking other modern first-person shooters any day of the week. Despite those little grievances, I really enjoyed this beta. The destruction was particularly impressive, as there wasn't a dip in frame rate, despite the overload of debris raining down. The gunplay felt so damn satisfying. Although I didn't really get a chance to use the sniper much, so I can't comment on that. The hilarious shenanigans me and my longtime Battlefield pals get up to in order to piss off the enemy will always be a highlight. We've been doing dumb stuff like that in every Battlefield since 4. As someone who's a medic/healer in most games I play, I felt very satisfied with how fun it was to choose that class in this game. It's one of those rare games where I feel rewarded for being a great medic, instead of being continuously burdened by an entitled community. Imagine that. Judging by community feedback, I think I'm one of the few that actually enjoyed the Rush mode in this beta, although I do agree that it's been scaled down and I don't like this decision. Rush, in its default form, was a large-scale game mode alongside Conquest, not a small tacked-on game mode akin to Domination and Deathmatch. From recent developer comments, it looks like they're keeping Rush the way it is. I hope at least the Portal mode allows us to customize and create a classic Rush experience. Speaking of Portal, I am so glad that's the one thing they're bringing back for 2042, because the potential is undeniable. If it takes off, creative players are going to go insane with it, and keep the game circulating for many years. Alright, this video is longer than I planned. In hindsight, I didn't realize how much I was going to yap about past Battlefields, but there you go. Battlefield 6 revived that passion in me, so here's my outlet to express it. If I figure out the situation behind Battlefield 2, 1942 and 2142, I may try those games out very soon and see what all the fuss is about. Possibly even finding a new favourite Battlefield? Nah, nothing's going to touch Bad Company 2 for me, even if another game is objectively better. Bad Company 2 had all the puzzle pieces fit together for the image I want. And now, I hope the servers get revived by some fan out there.